Okay, so we were trying to get a bunch of the coaches together to communicate some stuff with the balanced athlete stuff, and then as the last couple of days, as Sarah and I are talking and preparing, and I just said, well, anybody from Empowered Yoga should be invited. So it's like a last minute thing. We are going to do one for people that consider themselves just yoga teachers. We are going to do another meeting again in September. Just trying to get everybody to come together and to better understand kind of what we're doing and what we're not doing. So right now we're working, Sarah's working on, do you want to explain the Empowered Living program? Just so everybody can understand.
Faith and I are creating a new offering. It's going to be Faith. So,
I mean, that's
a way to hopefully grab people who aren't already practicing in the centers, and it's a holistic approach. So Empowered Living has 8 main topics that it goes over, nutrition being a huge component of it, and also really looking at how you're exercising, making sure that we're not over-exercising. Ideally, what we would like is 2 days of strength training, like pretty heavy strength training. A day could be like Tabata, could be sprinting, and then some yoga practices in there, and daily movements. So while you're at your work day, it's like getting up and moving, like really encouraging people to move. And some cardios that are done, on their own. So that would be 180 minus their age would be their max heart rate. And it's really about optimal gene expression. So trying to get people to become fat burners and fat adapted and down regulate the sugar burning that we do in this chronic cardio. So when we're doing this, Tabata is the key. And we've taken it upon ourselves to do like 78 in class, just because more is always better. Speed. But what's happening with the chronic cardio, I'll just go into this,
Sure.
tell your story. So chronic cardio is a real problem in today's industry. And certain brands of fitness, and this is where we really need to separate ourselves from this, because we just know too much and it's just not healthy. So, you say, for example, like an Orange Theory, where they're working hard, keeping their heart rate up, high for a good majority of the class, and that's their programming. You're using sugar as fuel, and you're creating systemic inflammation and chronic cardio, because exercise is a stress. So we've got stress at life, stress with the family, and then we're asking people to come in and stress themselves more. And with chronic stress, that's the release of cortisol, so these stress hormones get released, and it's actually detrimental. So when you release all that cortisol, your body is going to try to hold on to fat, especially belly fat. And with cortisol, you get hungrier. So it upregulates your hunger hormones in your brain, and it's very common to go really hard in a workout and then be ravenous after, and you can consume more calories in your post-workout meal than you burned. So you're going through this cycle of sugar depletion, and then loading and going up and down and up and down, up and down. And so if you're thinking about moderating your insulin levels, we're doing the exact opposite. Because when we're burning sugar as fuel, we only can store so much glycogen in our liver and muscles. And once that's tapped, you are in that stress hormone cycle where it's like, feed me, I need to survive. And this is what we're trying to prevent, because you get inflammation, breakdown, your immune response is decreased, risk of injuries up, and you're not gonna have your gains. Your testosterone goes down that you really want.
I think it's awesome. It's just, it's a lot. What Sarah just said is like, it's a lot. And so my insight of the last 48 hours has been, it's not just my industry that's backwards, it's every industry. If you know anything about our educational system, it's kind of like pretty backwards. Political system's fucked. Right? And if you talk to anybody who's been in any industry for a length of time, they're going to say there's a lot wrong with it. So Sarah started doing recently, about 3 months ago, she started doing this health coaching certification. Chiquetta is very familiar with the creator of her, Mark Sisson, who's been at it since 1970s. He was a world world-class triathlete, and he was fortunate enough that his body broke down before he took a heart attack, because it's this whole kind of chronic cardio thing, and just better understanding kind of where are things going. And so a lot of, like, one of the things that we're gonna kind of communicate today is that, you know, once our schedule changes in September, we're just having balanced athlete classes. I don't really want to be doing burn. And the reason is because it's like, why did I start the balanced athlete thing? Because after 5 years of practicing yoga, I started to realize why my body was in pain. And then I started to study, and I was like, well, there's a lot missing from this yoga model to be able to teach people to become more functional movers. So that was the essence, is like, can you fill in the gaps of what we're missing in the yoga room? And just like all things, you know, it keeps changing, and it's morphing, and it's all these different things. But I wanted to remain in the essence of really why I created it. So it's because, I think in some ways it can become an exercise program, and it can get dumbed down. And I don't necessarily think that, like, that's overly, any teacher here is doing that. It's just the consumer comes in, and what is their perspective? What's the average consumer perspective? You're gonna kick my ass and I gotta work out, I'm gonna be really sore. It's like, oh, this is exhausting. It's like, that's not what I do. If you wanna do that, just go, then there's other places you can go. And they're plentiful, to the point where it's crushing, like, you know. So what we're doing isn't really that. I mean, really what we're doing, if anything, I mean, and many of you guys have heard me say it, is that we're educators. We're educating people. And we're educating people on, like, some of the things that Sarah said. And yesterday I went mountain, I'm just starting to mountain bike again. And I went mountain biking with a friend of mine. And I started talking, because, you know, she's passionate, I'm passionate about this stuff. So I started talking to him a little bit. And he's 49, his name's Scott. And I just kind of told him, I was like, oh, wait a second. Are you interested in this at all? He's like, yeah, man, keep talking about it. And so I was talking about, like, the chronic cardio thing. He's like, yeah. He's like, I got 3 guys that all had heart attacks this year that I ride with. I'm like, huh. I'm like, wow. And so a lot of times, you know, when you're ahead of the curve, and sometimes, you know, our population doesn't know this. And they don't really know, you know, what's going to be the result of not being able to move your body really well, but yet you're exercising every day. But you're not doing it correctly. Like, our society doesn't get that yet, you know? It's like, I think you guys all get that, right? So there's going to be some things by the end of the meeting that I'm just going to ask you to really start emphasizing when you're teaching, because it's all about creating. I mean, business success and also helping people are kind of tied hand in hand in my ethics and morals. Meaning, if I can educate people and create a culture where people, that I'm not creating it, we're creating a culture where people understand there's a difference what we're doing, right? It's not just about come here and get your butt kicked, right? You know, I mean, you're gonna get your butt kicked, you know, but it's because you're gonna work, but it's really about working in. It's like a work in as much as it's a workout, and then that's the whole thing with just emphasizing practice. Right? Don't come here to work out. Come here to practice, because. Second?
Yeah, I think, you know, if we can shift, because people are still caught up in, like, how many calories you can get burned. And it's like, we gotta teach people to shift their thought on that and talk about hormonal response. So what did we just do? How do we, like, affect your genes? So try to shift our community's thought on how many calories did I burn, how much am I gonna, you know, keep burning from this. And, you know, some of these workouts, like, if you looked at how many calories you burned, you'd be like, well, I didn't really work that hard. It's like, well, that's not the point. The point is what it's doing is sending to your hormones to communicate to, you know, upregulate fat burning, increase muscle mass, increase human growth hormone, increase testosterone, you know, turn off genes that want to burn sugar for fuel, or, you know, turn expression and optimal hormonal living and having like the best life from what we're doing and what, yeah.
How many of you know somebody with an autoimmune disorder in your life? How many of you know somebody who has had to go to endocrinologist or several endocrinologists because they had hormonal disruption? Did you know all those people like 10, 15 years ago? Like, did you know, like, you know, this is a big kind of spike that's happening. And so that we're trying to understand, like, these things are coming from a mindset that really is shifting now. And so like, that's kind of like to put it out there and make it tangible to people, like, autoimmune disorders didn't just happen overnight, you know, for out of nowhere, right? And so we're just starting to understand that hormones play a huge, huge role, a bigger role than calorie deficit and calorie burn for most people. And what's really great about this is not just for bringing new people in that don't have any diet or exercise in their life. We've got a lot of people that are either plateaued or burned out that have been in our community or the CrossFit community or the Orange Theory community or whatever, and they're saying, how come I still either am having these issues or I keep hitting these plateaus, right? And so it's something that's really beneficial. The concept is really beneficial to both swings of that pendulum, and being able to move the needle for both of those groups of people is a pretty big deal. We're experimenting with ourselves the last couple months, and some of you have gotten texts from me about if you want to be guinea pigs as well. And I think I'll give it back to you guys. I think the whole point is we don't want to kind of launch this from like a top down. We'd like to have like everybody be able to speak about it, and so anybody who would like, you know, to learn more about it, we really want to share it. We really want you to be able to share it with like experience.
So I love this, but I am not equipped to speak to this, just like I am not equipped to speak about anatomy in my BA classes. So the best I can do is speak to about why we plank all the time, right? It's not about you getting stronger, it's about what the planking does for your body. Why do we continue to bridge? I can speak to that. But as soon as you start getting into anatomy and genes and things of that nature,
Yeah.
no, I'm being
But I
honest.
think that's a great point, because we don't
I'm just
wanna-
being honest.
yeah,
I
I
do
think
not
that's a great
feel
point.
equipped to speak at that level, because then, because I already have people coming up to me now about, you know, injuries, and I have to tell them, I'm not a doctor, I'm not equipped to diagnose you, right? I'm not even, I can help you modify, and that's the best I can do for you. But when we start getting to some of these areas that are a little more internal, I get a little bit nervous. just
Yeah,
to be
don't,
honest.
but these,
Okay,
it's
I
not,
just, I wanna put it out there
it's all,
because.
it's
I
all,
think it's
it's
a
all
wonderful
about,
thing
it's
to
just
say.
like, as we're,
It needs
like,
to
so,
be said.
so, I would hope that everybody sitting here understands that like business is like really tough.
Yeah.
It's really, it's tough, it's really tough. So it's like, what we're thinking, what we're just trying to focus on, trying to think about, trying to create is like, okay, how do we differentiate ourselves within a very, very crowded marketplace where there's lots of options and there's nothing really wrong with these other things, but it's like, how, and it's not like we're like, all right, let's start doing this now because we're trying to chase something. We're not doing that. We're saying, no, what do we do? Like, you know, Sarah and I ad nauseum have to talk about this stuff because our ass is on the line. It's like, what do we do that's special? You know, and what we do that's special and what we've done for almost 2 decades is
Bring
we
into a big
educate.
Yes.
We educate people about, and always, Lisa, it's like, I don't know, maybe I'll ask Johnny, whatever. Or it's like, go take his class. Maybe he could take a look at you. You know, just like sometimes with some of the stuff that Sarah's learning, I'm like, you know, like, look, my wife's gonna call you. She's gonna talk to you because I'm not really that apt at it right now. So we don't want you to do anything that you don't want to. And a lot of it is just, you know, getting, it's meeting people where they are. So it's like meeting people where they are and then working on trying to help them under the realization that what we're teaching takes time to learn. And so if we go in the marketplace and we're kind of focused on workouts, calories burned, and it's just like, that's not really what we're focused on doing. What we're focused on doing is initially from a structural perspective, right? Can we make the body more functional?
And that's the mantra I go in with.
Yeah.
I don't speak in terms of workout. I
Yeah.
speak in terms of
Yeah.
functional movement, mobility, and stability.
Yep.
Right? So that's where I'm landing with people.
Yep.
Okay.
And so a couple of the things, just because and then we're gonna go over to the board, and let me tell you something, I'm working on all of this stuff right now. The Siegfried Group is helping me. I do have a couple interns and so stuff is getting done with all of this to try to better kind of map it out on what it is. So I'm able to communicate that. Like, how many of you are doing the 300 hour? Right, so yeah, so like, and even if you're not, like the 300-hour weekend, it's like, I'm gonna teach a thing called the 7 series. So this is what I'm working on, and it's 7 1-hour, or not 1 hour, it's 7 lesson plans that teaches first core pulse, right, which just got and it's my fault. It's like, what's core pulse? It's just basically like, when you work your peripheral nervous system to your CNS. That's what core pulse was, but it's like that whole thing. So I've got it listed out on what you do in each movement and the whole why. And the other thing is then the next one is mapping imbalances or asymmetries, and then nucleus and periphery of the core. And I'll teach this in a weekend, how to teach this. Then it's functional breathing, hips down, right? And then upper body, and then contralateral motion, the movement. So with that, let's go over to the board and take a look at that. Is that all right? Yeah? All right. I gotta keep checking with Sarah because she wants to talk. She's got a lot of stuff that she wants to talk about. And so, I feel like I finally have figured out how to be able to explain this to people in a way that gets them so they go, I get it. And I think it's pretty freaking good. But I feel like it's taken me all these years to basically just deliver it. So no matter who they are, they go, got it. Okay? So the very first thing, and I want you guys, like when somebody goes, what's balanced athlete? Okay. Gravity. The unconscious force that's pulling us down to the ground. Most people got it. I'm not going to disagree with you about gravity. Right? Second thing, we have arches, right, in our feet and our hands that support the mother arch of the spine. Most people are like, okay. Now standing there, so everybody stand up. I do this ad nauseum, right? And then just curl your toes up. Right. Okay. What did your body just do? Right. I did this week with a guy that I trained 22 years ago. And so you can just keep your toes up. And his wife, who came in, watch me, with hip pain, right? And his 80-something-year-old mother, who's still upright, which is pretty freaking amazing. And I've been doing this recently with people, and they get it. Right now, let your toes go and see if your body collapses. And then go back up again. This is how you tell people this is what we do in Balanced Athlete. That freaking simple. Right? It's like, did you rock back? And the first time, some people, eyes light up. Patty, 80-some years old, she's like, this is amazing. This is amazing. Right? That's Balanced Athlete. So you have gravity, arches, you're teaching people how to use the arches to align with gravity. That kind of pretty freaking straightforward, simple. That's what we're doing in here. That's what I keep noticing. Everybody's, it's like the Solveig, like she was like, my pain is completely gone. How did you do that? Right? How did you? So this person who's exercising, right, or doing whatever, is just breaking them down, breaking them down, breaking them down, breaking. So you can go to Orange Theory CrossFit, you can go run miles and break your body down, but not here. Right? Not here. And then the other part before I kind of hop into this is that I keep exploring with. It's like, so is it a collapsing of the body, and is it a collapsing of the spirit? Is it a collapsing that's just happening right in the person? And this will get into the work I think that we're going to get into over the next couple of years, which is trying to really fuse together, right, that. And I'm waiting to hear back from Kathy Mack, who's the Dean of the Public Health, whom I've met with multiple times before, because I think the reason why my TED Talk didn't air was because there's no research behind this. So it just happens to be that the #1 physical therapy school in the country is the University of Delaware. So why don't you just start doing some research on it? So, because what happens is anytime anybody starts kind of basically noticing an industry's backwards and starts trying to turn it, they get pretty beat up. And I'm getting beat up right now, right? So we get beat up because we're trying to change something. But I know, and you guys know, but otherwise you wouldn't be here, right? That what we're trying to teach people and what we're trying to impart is like way fucking ahead of its time. It's ahead of its time. So if you guys aren't really kind of sharp with being able, and simple, being able to do that, right, then people probably, it's going to be tough enough with their own karma for them to get it, let alone if we're not good to help them get it. So go ahead and just keep in mind, I think one of the things, can you guys all maybe come a little bit closer, is the fact that, like, this fall I'm going into my 25th year of being an educator, like 25 years. And I just look at it and I'm like, this whole thing is fluid. It's a continual progression. It's a continual understanding, right? It's a continual being like, I was wrong. And now I gotta try to make it right. I gotta try to make it right. But I was wrong, so now I'm gonna try to make it right. So I just wanna kind of just go through this little part, and then Sarah wants to touch a little bit over here. And keep in mind with all of this stuff, and I sincerely mean this to all of you, nothing is wrong. Right? There's nothing wrong. It's just like, why are you doing it? Or I'm kind of done with that. Like this idea that was wrong. It's like, well, why did you do it? I did it because of this. It's like, oh, all right, well, there you go. It's not like anything's right or wrong. It's just, for me, just going, the rolling of the feet and hands, right? The priming of the feet, you have to differentiate these three things. You got to differentiate prime, bounce, and jump. Right? Because it's like this. So what I did this morning up at Glen Mills is, I had them holding this. I'm like, that's your end range of motion. That's your end range of motion, right? Or, and then with toes, and then back and forth. And then I'm like, can you do it rapidly? Is there fluidity through the biggest tendon in your body? Is there? Or maybe there isn't. Maybe the foot's not really working with, and I know, and I think you guys know, I can't wait when Delaware proves this shit. When they're like, holy shit, man, you were right. It's like, because that's the reason why your freaking back hurts. Is because that's not happening. That's why runners are getting injured. Right? That's why so many things are going on, because people can't do this simple freaking motion. And then if you start taking them to a HIIT class barefoot where they're actually trying to do like really serious shit, then now I'm falling into Orange Theory and everybody else who's just hurting people. And we're hurting people. Can Stacy do it? Can some of you guys do this shit? Yeah, but in general, most human beings, no way. Right? They need to spend so much time here. Right? Hip abduction. Recently, 2 weeks ago, when I took Jimmy back to school and I stopped in Michigan, right? And the people that run the studio there teach serious balanced athlete stuff. The only challenge is I haven't really communicated to them in a couple of years. So I was like doing the band things. They were like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah. And then the upper body with the bands, they were like, holy shit. So it's like being able to look at what we're doing here, and then when you're moving through a warm-up, are you hitting all of this stuff? And then the other really powerful thing, and I'm putting this in this book, is that prompts, right? Being able to prompt. And somebody told me that about 6 months ago. They're like, your class is amazing. I'm like, why? Why? They said, the lady said, it's your ability to prompt. So I was like, prompt? Look up the definition for that. Right? It's when you tell them to pay attention to how they feel. And they go, oh yeah, my foot is in the ground deeper. Oh yeah, I am standing up a little bit taller. Oh yeah, my hips do feel a little bit looser. And what that does is it starts building the why. Not because you said it, but because they felt it. That's what it's like. So like the stuff that I'm talking to with Sarah, and this is really, I'm gonna kind of jump out there, pretty out there. This is about feeling. This is about reteaching people how to feel. We don't really smell and taste and like pay attention to the vibration of our body. It's like, so I think the bigger thing of all of this stuff is getting people to start feeling again, kinesthetically noticing their body. And it's like we're becoming less human. We're losing our humanity. Do you guys have any questions on any of these things that are in here?
What's the quad plank down dog?
Just tabletop,
Oh, thank you, quad,
plank,
tabletop, thank you.
and down dog.
Sorry.
Yeah. And the really, and the thing is with some of this stuff, it's like this goes back to you, Lisa. It's like, so if so many people are having problems that kind of look something like this, or like this, or like this, it's like, there's your plank. And so the languaging I've been using recently is I'm just saying we got to work on holding this for a minute. Like the women's world record was broken in June, 4 hours and 20 minutes. The men's is 8 hours and a minute. And if a human being can't hold a plank for a minute, then we shouldn't really be going all that much further. We certainly shouldn't be ever trying to swing a kettlebell or pick a flower pot up because they don't have enough stability in their spinal column.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about it because people will make a comment that they don't think you hear. Like somebody said 2 weeks ago, I'm like so tired of planking.
Right.
And I was kind of like, but do you know why you're planking every time you walk in here?
Yeah.
Do you understand why you're bridging every time you're walking in here, or supine 90, or we make you bounce, and we make you bounce by having contact with your heels to the ground every time? Like, people are coming in here and going through the motions, but we have to talk about the why, right? So you're gonna plank, and I mentioned this. I said you're gonna plank every core pulse class, but let me tell you why you're planking.
Yes.
Let me tell you what it's doing for your body, because I don't think they were making this connection. They just thought somebody's throwing a plank in there because we had this damn challenge going on. No, you can do the challenge, or you can choose not to do a challenge. But let me help you understand what's engaging every time you hold plank for a minute. Let me tell you why when you squat, what's going on. And mine is real rudimentary. I'm not going into any level of muscular and
I don't want.
I can't.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't want you to.
But I had to look it up because I wanted to speak to it intelligently.
Yeah.
What does a plank do? And then I brought that in and just started, and people were like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's how you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
it's-
happened in your class? It wasn't plank, it was, I don't know if you were doing cat and cow, but you were talking about the spine.
Yep.
But it clicked with people, like, why should you do this every day? And they're like,
Oh.
And I was like, yeah.
Do you see the light come on over people's heads when you do that too?
Like their eyes.
Yes, I
buzz
see it in
out.
your class a lot too, Chris. People are not, and then all of a sudden you start speaking to it and people are like,
It's because we speak, I draw a parallel with once a light bulb pops on when I first learned horticultural Latin, like, oh, there is a reason behind this.
yes.
It's the same thing with
Yes.
this, like, spinal flexion and extension
Yep.
of the cat and cow. And you want the spine to be fluid, but we're so, I almost think that in some ways, we're so close to it, cause this is
Yes.
where we
Yep.
Yes, we live.
live.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
You have to remember that, again, we always talk about general law.
Whoever general public.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
No, this is great, and this is not a tangent. Sarah did a thing, Sarah and Faith did a thing over the corporation. Yeah, Sarah Faith did, no, it's off, but it's very on topic from what you just said. It's like, and the people are still like, well, I thought we were supposed to be eating 60%, like, isn't the food pyramid, like, carbs? Right, so it's like, wait a second, doesn't fat, so as much as we, that's one of the, I tell you, that's one of my top tenors in doing this stuff for 25 years. Is just that, like, they don't know what I understand. And then what keeps me humble and connected is there's a lot I don't understand about them.
Like, I don't know how to tune up a car.
Yeah.
And they don't, I
Yeah.
mean, it's that
But it's,
same thing.
right, but it's funny, like, we haven't had air conditioning this summer. Like, our air conditioner broke, and it's like, we just can't get it fixed, we can't afford to fix it. So it's kind of like, but like, every time the HVAC guy would come, I'd be like, you tell me what to do, man, I'm not an HVAC guy, right? You know what I mean? And it's like, and if you're gonna upcharge, like, don't upcharge me, like, just kind of tell me, like, what should I do? I don't know HVAC. So we all know all of this stuff, and so then people come in, and if we educate them, and they show up, and we connect with them, then they go, oh. And I mean, and my big thing is like, who's showing up here? It's like people that already have problems. They're banged up, right? They're 40, most people are 40, 60 or older, And then, so you take somebody, and this is, it's so easy for me to stand up here and be passionate about this stuff because I love it so freaking much. And I know it freaking works when it's done right. I know it works because I use it all the time with people and with my own body. So like, you guys know my dad, he's like this. So it's like, all right, after his 4th rotator cuff surgery, right, it's like, all right, we're just, he's 78. So I'm just gonna keep him here. And I'm just gonna have him just doing stuff like this. But overhead, The other day, Mandy was watching me work with a guy privately, and this guy was in tears. I didn't even know. It was like after a year of working with him. He's from Belfast. And he's just starts to cry because he says, I couldn't even pick my daughter up anymore. 45 years old. It's like his back was so, right? And so the other day, this guy moves like a freaking ninja. You guys watch him. But this is his genetics. He's more here. I'm here. So I just said to Mandy, I'm like, why would I load him with dumbbells or have him do a squat thrust? That's stupid. It's stupid. Now I'd have him hang from the bar, have him do pull-ups, which he didn't like, have him doing all that stuff. But I'm not going to have him push any weight overhead except for the downward dog. Because it's just not smart. It's not smart. And then he just said, he was sitting there listening to me with Mandy, he goes, I really appreciate that. Like, I appreciate it. I said, Frank, I'm worried about you at 65, 70, 75. And I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. The other part, and we talk about this a lot. So, I'm rewriting the Balanced Athlete Manual, and I'm just going to be teaching just like block. Right? The second block will be like the floor. It'll be the movements on the ground, right? And then the next block will be, going through this. Right? Now, this is not really. This is becoming industry standard in the strength and conditioning industry. This is kind of like pretty solid dogma at any pro, amateur strength and conditioning facility. Any really good physical therapist also kind of knows this stuff. So it's just, not this. This isn't there yet, but it'll come. It'll come. But the lunge, the squat, upper body push, upper body pull, hinge, and then carry. Right, just some kind of thing where you're actually walking, having to carry something heavy, whether it's on one side or both sides. And then in and I'm gonna let you're gonna talk, but I just want the podcast the other day, and this is one thing that unfortunately right now, our facility, we can do it, but it doesn't really support it as much as I would like, is this idea that when you stop picking up something heavy, right, your body, why would you expect your bone density and your muscles to stay as you're getting older if you're not picking up things that are heavy? It's just not going to. Or I'm gonna use I'm gonna do a 15 pound right, hinge. I'm like, really? You can't stand there and maybe hold a 30 pound? Right? And be able just to, but you're not picking up anything that's heavy. So our facility, unfortunately, it does and it doesn't, you know, but for me, it's, you know, being able to pick something up and pick it up correctly. But before Sarah comes up and talks about variations and things like this, so the floor work, right, so I could put it here, right, I always put it up here. This idea of being able to get this area of your body lit up before you do anything that's more complex is just that's an old strength coach kind of formula. You know, you'd spend time 10 minutes before you do any plyometrics, any agility drills, any Olympic lifting, any heavy lifting. You always want to make sure you get that girdle kind of nice and lit up and engaged with, you know, things like bridge, single bridge, right, supine 90. If you haven't been in class with me recently, just one of the things that I'm starting to teach is pencil space in the lower back, and then getting people to, I said, so you can press your lower back down, right, if it feels like it's too much, but if you can keep pencil space there, and it's just, and the reason why I did was I've been watching a bunch of videos on Stu McGill, Dr. McGill, who's done all the back research, and just kind of reading his stuff more, and then also myself just playing with it, this idea of a pencil space. Does anybody here know exactly what I'm talking about?
Mara does.
Yeah, I know Mara does, that's it. Lie down on your back for a second, because this is a big one. And then Sarah, you take over after that. Now if you come down on your back, and what happened was, we shot about 90 videos this summer for social media and also educational purposes that we'll start bringing them out in October. And when you bend your knees and you place your feet on the ground, there you go. Now can you press your lower back into the ground? So so that's posterior tilt. Hopefully I'm just telling you guys what you already know. I hope you know that, right? And then could you lift your lower back off the ground just enough I could slide a pencil but not my finger, or not my hand under your back. So it's really subtle. So you're not lifting your hips. So that's really important to kind of feel that your glutes are completely relaxed, right, as you're doing that. Now as you find the pencil space, what you should start to kind of feel, depending on whether you had babies or your thing has been ripped open, but you should start to feel the beginnings of a brace. And then from there, right, if you can then lift your feet off the ground, and can you hold your legs together and squeeze them together while maintaining the pencil space. So this is one of the things that I've been cueing, and then after listening to Dr. McGill again, I'm like, you know what? So for me, press your lower back into the ground and see if you can feel that's your periphery of your core. Right? And then let your lower back just get this pencil space. And then the periphery for me kind of starts to dissipate a little bit. And then the deeper part of the core starts to engage. Maren.
So it's an oscillation of your pelvis. It's not a flaring of your ribs.
Yeah.
So it's really helpful, if you don't mind me butting in,
Do it.
that if you put your hands on your rib cage and you knit your rib cage down, it's the ability to tip your pubic bone towards you and away from you without flaring your rib cage. So it's a core motion.
So that's hard.
Right.
As soon as you said put your hands on your
And
ribs, it
it's
got hard.
also a function of how big is my ass and how your structure is, right? So if your butt is big, you're gonna have a larger propensity to flare your rib cage and have a larger space. So upper, internal, external obliques have to stay in the game, and it's the ability to tip your pubic bone away and towards you. So it's also helpful if you put your thumbs on your bottom rib and your fingertips on your ASIS, right? And the ability to move that back and forth with your core. Because your feet are up, you can't use your glutes, so it's really important that when your feet are down, you're also doing it with your core, not squeezing your butt.
Yeah.
Very good.
Awesome. Good. And just roll over to the side and stand up and see if you can just kind of feel that difference. Yeah, and then stand, and when you stand, and then curl your toes back up again and see if you can kind of feel it. So that's foot to core. So if somebody was coming in here and they were working with us for like a year, and I went up to him and I said, "What's your foot to core?" I would expect that they know what it is. Otherwise, we're not in a very learned environment. We have a student that's been here for a year that doesn't know foot to core, right? Or upper body core integration. Or you know, the importance of lateral flexion to the health of your spine in the front and back. So it's kind of like just creating an environment where people understand it. Because my other big insight, and then you go on, is this year, and this is part of the 7 series. I have it worked in. Is that if we're going to spend our lives in 4 positions, standing, sitting, walking, and getting up and down off the ground, don't you think that we should probably focus on teaching those? Because it's like, yeah, I was at your core, and you worked my core, and then I went to the office and I sat like this for the day. It's like, you're still going to wind up with back pain. Just like in our government, at the NSCA conference, one of the speakers said, don't worry, by healthcare standards, you exercise for an hour in the gym and sit behind a desk all day, you're still sedentary. You're still sedentary, right? So you come in here and you do the movements, but then you leave, and you don't really stand very well, and you don't sit very well, and you don't walk very well. Right? Then it's kind of like, what's the point to this thing? And what's the whole point to it?
Okay. So we know that this is what we want in our programming: the bounce, the lunge, squat, upper body push, upper body pull, hinge carry. So we're going to program that, and the goal here is for us to write, we're going to be aggressive and say like 8, like this is good, we know this. This is good. We want to get 8 of these created together, but I want to talk about a little bit of variations first. So we're going to use a squat as an example. How can we make a variation of a squat? There you go, pulse. So that is one way that we can make changes within the same exercise, is adding a change of range of motion. So you've got that full range of motion, then you can add that small range of motion. So range of motion is one of our ways to add variation. What's another way to add variation?
Change the stance.
Load, yep,
Kettlebell, band.
exactly, so load.
Cross core.
Yep, so we've got cross core, we've got kettlebells, we've got bands, we've got dumbbells, front rack. We've got, you know, so changing the load piece of equipment, and then change of stance. So here's our sumo squat. Then I could change the load, change it again with a kettlebell. I can add that pulse down at the bottom, so changing the range of motion. What's another way to make change?
Check out your heel.
There you go, foot positioning. So heels are up, you know, that. Another one. What?
Pace.
Pace, yep, so speed and tempo, pace. Going real slow or real fast. And you're getting all these down, right? Yeah, because this is gonna go to everybody. What about, I've got 2 feet, I got 1 foot. You could still do a single leg squat. You know, so you could teach them at the cross core is a good way to start, is, you know, holding, your feet are together, you get to the bottom of the squat, make that micro shift, that weight all the way in the left, extend, back up. Because pistol squats a lot of times end up looking like a single leg row. So getting them to, cue them to the weight to 1 foot, you know, legs together, leg to 1 foot. So we're here, because this is what you'll see. And it's like, it's a single leg row. So you gotta really break it down for them, legs together, shift your weight to your left foot, extend your right leg, press it up. So we just got some great variations. Anything else?
Orientation in the room?
Yeah, there you go.
Facing everything.
Exactly. Yeah. I like that because, you know, especially if you're doing lunges, you know, very often, we talked about this, we step back in all of our lunges here. We look awesome stepping back, right, Faye? So, but, you know, going forward, you know, it's a little harder. So, because, and then changing the direction. So we've got different planes of motion. We've got frontal, sagittal, and transverse. So, and up, yeah, exactly. Up and down. So we've got different directions, different elevations. So, and also doing an exercise,
By up, Mayor, is that the same thing? Jump. Good jump.
yep.
Oh, got it.
So, so when you're doing a lunge pulse, change the depth, change where you are holding that range of motion. You can also, we've got isometrics that we can throw in there. Chris is working on the wall sit challenge. We could also just hold, this is brutal, it looks so easy. You know, you're holding the bottom of your lunge. Squeeze those legs together. So isometrically squeeze it together, you know? So, all right, so that's some variations. Any other variations we want to throw in there?
That was really helpful for me, Sarah.
Why, thank you.
No, I'm serious.
Good.
That's really helpful.
Good. All right, so now let's make some pods together. So bouncing is the feet coming up and down. You know, it's like we never have to leave the ground if we don't want to, but it is important that we still train people for some power. So feel free to throw in a squat jump. You know, feel free to hold the bottom of that squat jump, throw in an isometric and a power. So we can blend things. So let's create, and I'm gonna give you just a little guideline so we can,
Well, Sarah, I think it'd be really helpful if you just went through and just talked about all the variations of what you just erased.
oh, okay. All right, so lunge. Okay, so we did that for a squat.
And can I just interject for a second? Can everybody here admit that they get stuck in their programming? And that you forget a lot of shit? Yeah. That you're just kind of like, oh yeah, oh I forgot about that, I forgot about that, I forgot about that. It's like,
So
Practice is important.
let's take a lunge. All right, so we're gonna have a lunge. Let's start with the different tools of, and I'm gonna have Melissa be my beautiful model. Yeah, yeah, girl. All right, so she's gonna take a lunge, and I'm just gonna have her do right heel high, straight up, straight down. And let's link her breath. So let's slow her down. Let's have her do a 5-second inhale coming down. Ooh, let's hold the bottom there. Hold right there for 5, 4, 3, 2, and slowly back up. So I call these triangle lunges because there's 3 points. So there's the top, which we're not gonna stay at the top because you're not under load. So 5 seconds down, 5 seconds at the bottom, 5 seconds to come up. So you're making that nice triangle, and it's very challenging. And then right back down. So as you get to the top, you go right back down. So now let's have her change her. Let's go with your pulsing, range of motion. So let's get to the bottom, and we're gonna come up an inch, hold, down an inch, hold, up an inch. Should everybody have some weight so you can feel this? That's it.
I don't even need weight.
You don't even
No,
need
I don't
it.
even need weight for that.
And then,
no.
there we go. And then
I
I'll
need
call
weight
it,
on the lunge.
take a little, switch your legs. I call this a 5-point lunge. Let's get that left heel high. Let's get to the bottom. And then I'll cue the first one. Up an inch, hold it. Up an inch. Up an inch. One more. Last one. And back down, reset. So 5 single little spaces of coming up. And we're having that movement come from the feet. You're connecting into the feet, you're having that squeeze of your feet together to get that movement. There we go. So that's just some variations on lunging. We could have her weights beware. What would be a harder progression? Overhead. So what if somebody is not at the place that they could go overhead? Front rack. Front rack. So weights are elevated above the shoulders, so we're gonna keep that elevation. Now her biceps, delts, chest, core, everything have to work. So that's our front rack squat. And then, there we go, overhead squat, or lunge, sorry. Lunge. There we go. And now we're talking about orientation of the room and different directions. What about a lateral? So keeping that connection, so wide number 11s, so that's a little more challenging. She had that little balance up at the top. Call that like a nice little flamingo lunge. So she's leaving the ground. Could we do this not leaving the ground? Yeah. So try that, and then just rock it back up, and so be like. So that's two feet basic support, and then you've got your single leg, so where she'd be coming up. So that was variation with 1 foot to 2 feet. And we've got your little pulses you could add there. We'll go back to the pulses. Let's have fast little pulses, just like connecting from the foot. That's it. You're really working from the foot, and then back up and switch sides. You know, so changing the tempo. There we go. Now, so we're still in lunging. We'll get rid of the weights. What about the speed and power? So we were talking about that. What would be a speed and power lunge?
Jump switch.
Yeah, that jump switch, driving lunge. There we go. She's so good at these. She always takes those.
As I fall over.
There we go. So there's the split lunge jump, and then we also have driving lunge. There we go. So how can we change this variation in a driving lunge? Yeah, pulse at the bottom. Did someone say that? Yep, pulse at the bottom. What about going super slow? Hold the bottom for 5, 4, 3, 2. Hold the top, stick the landing. So we've got that single leg hip hinge. So from ear down to heel is all one line. Then we could also say, now let's leave the ground. So we're gonna change that. Yep. There you go.
I didn't work out this morning or anything.
You could also say, hold the bottom, we're gonna hold the bottom, and we're gonna leave the ground. So you can make that variation there. That's it. Woo, that's a nasty one, right? That's it. So we're getting isometric and power. Isometric and power. All right, so there's some lunges. So we've got, who wants to play on the cross court? I'll give Melissa a break.
Thanks, girl.
Okay, all right, Jenna. So we're talking about 2 feet to 1 foot. So this is gonna be, I call it a hidden lunge. You're gonna face the wall, face the anchor. I call this a hidden lunge. So we're gonna, so hidden lunge, curl your right hamstring. So you're gonna do a hamstring curl. You're gonna reach those hips first, and you're gonna slide that right knee down that left calf and try to hide it behind your left Achilles. That's it, and then slowly press up. Have that movement come from the left inner heel. That's it. So that's a very challenging, yep. So here's a lunge. It's, now we're on 1 foot. So we said, now let's throw in that pulsing at the bottom. So get to the bottom, really connected to the foot. Have the movement come from the ground on up. So it's up an inch, down an inch. John's ass is gonna be smoking.
It already is.
Yeah. So add that little pulse. So get to the bottom. Get to the bottom, come up 1 inch, down an inch, that's it, and all the way back up.
Oh, now you know what my back's doing there.
All right, so that's a lunge. So that's our single leg squat. Doesn't make a difference when you focus on transitioning the weight to the other foot. Okay. Single legs. You've got suspended lunge. Hook those together first, that's safety first. Tim, you wanna do this one? Okay.
So glad it worked.
So, I always suggest a dowel
I
rug.
feel like you could do it in a dress, Mare.
For balance, you're gonna take your back foot and put it in. And then, yep, there we go, we're gonna hop out, so that's, Chris, where do you like the starting and ending position to be?
So, I'm looking more, okay, from the non-suspended leg, again, ear, shoulder, hip, all the way down. So I have the move kick back, so
Yep.
it doesn't, yeah. And so I'm looking, sometimes it takes 1 or 2, you don't want their front knee to shoot
Okay.
too far forward. Yep, that's nice.
And he's got a very nice vertical torso here.
Right.
So what you'll see in a suspended lunge a lot of times is people lean forward.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
So just warning you, that's what happens. Now,
But there's nothing wrong with that.
well, you get more load in the glute when you stay vertical like this.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, come up and try it. Now.
No, I can do it.
Yeah, Sarah, the other thing that I find is important to cue on this is to really push, and people are hesitant to do it. You gotta push down into the suspended leg. Otherwise, they're gonna be all over the
really.
place. Yeah.
Especially going back, I'm like really pushing into that.
Yeah.
Now come up halfway, go back down, come all the way back up. Nasty, right? Woo-hoo-hoo! Yeah, so, and cue the big toe, because getting that big toe of the standing point is gonna get the mid glute to fire more. So you're gonna get more glute action out of the big toe connecting.
That's something I've been talking about lately is like, cause I mean, we've been talking 4 corners of the feet.
Yep.
And I still mention it, but I'm also like, hey, go a little bit past that.
Yeah.
Big toe, knuckle down,
Big
outside
toe.
edge down,
Mhm.
define the arch, but, yeah.
So big toe. All right. So those are some lunges. Mara.
You can do that laterally as well.
Heck yeah, girl. Oh my gosh.
So sorry, I can't demonstrate that for you right
See,
now.
let me see this because I can't either because I'm wearing a skirt. So
I'm gonna do
I
one,
have shorts
one
on,
other one.
but I don't have underwear on.
Going back to
Okay.
Sarah, going back to, because we don't do enough front lunges.
Right?
We don't.
No.
So,
Correct.
I call these
I love
superstars
these. I love
from
these.
Saturday Night Live, those of you who are old enough to remember.
Duh,
Superstar.
that name's
The
Molly.
mistake I see on this is people want to set up here, you gotta be pretty upright, get those,
Yeah.
and then
overhead.
you're creating a float.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I'm
Float time.
suspended here.
And really focusing on the peripheral points.
This is upper
core
body
actions.
core integration,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
this is
like nobody's business.
Yeah.
And this is, once you press those hands to initiate the movement, that core lights up.
and you have to start, you have to have them set up in the overhead position or else
Yeah.
they won't step correctly.
Yep. Okay. So we had our lunges. Okay.
Another
Twisting
area of
lunges.
that I like this
Twisting
cross floor sometimes, so you unpin and then you get down to hold the bottom and then you work the.
Oh, yeah.
body motion.
So getting that nice
That
upper
people
body.
look at me like,
And it doesn't look bad. It just is really intense when you do it. And so everything's working. And that's a nice way to get a little jump of cardio in there without leaving the ground. So is that jogging people's imaginations for lunges when we start programming? Okay, and now let's go on to hinges. So we did squats, hinges. What kind of hinges do we have? Deadlift, swings,
swing and stop.
tick-tock,
Downhill skier.
downhill skier.
What do we call it? Because I call it just swinging sets. When you swing and then you squat, you set it down.
What you call it,
and then you
tick-tock?
get back up.
No.
Is that the,
What do you
is that
mean?
the TikTok?
Stop and go?
Stop and go. I just stop and go. So different.
Plank to down dog.
Uh-huh, that's a hinge. And then we could change up, so we've got 2 feet, it's a single leg hinge. And then again, adding different elements, so you could have your single leg hip hinge weighted with a kettlebell. So they call that single leg RDL. If balance is an issue, have them use. Yep, and there's squats, so that's offset weight. So changing up your weight, that's very challenging. One weighted on one side. So you can have your kettlebell in one hand, your single leg hip hinge. So if balance is an issue, if you could do two weights for your single leg hip hinge. Kettlebells, for deadlifts, you can have 1 kettlebell, you could have 2 kettlebells. So that's a variation also, especially people should be doing deadlifts a lot heavier than they're doing a 15-pound. It's like, really?
Can
Yeah.
I, sorry, interject, because I was gonna say this here, because this happened, and I think Lisa, you were in the class when it happened, is that there is still, and I hate to genderize this, but there is still, maybe it was you, Jill, that was in the class, I don't want to be so, with somebody who, no, they're not the same, but I can't honestly remember, but there's still this fallacy out there that the industry is perpetuating, that if I pick up something that's bigger than a 15-pound weight, I'm gonna instantly turn into the Hulkatron. I'm just gonna like, "Ugh!" And it's like, it's bullshit. And I think that's something we need to address too, because I had a real serious, and this is a very smart woman that I'm talking to. This is a physician, and she's convinced that if she picks up something bigger than 15 pounds, her ass isn't gonna fit through the door on the way out of work. I mean, it's like, it's not, this goes back to the hormones. It's not that easy.
The
And
amount
there's these
of
like
calories that
right,
women
right.
that are getting to
But there's
that
still,
have to eat to
folks
maintain
like,
it, and
like
most people
Tracy
can't afford
Anderson,
the
and
grocery
yeah.
bill.
And people in business that
I find the hinging easier the heavier the weight, because it
Yeah.
actually makes you.
Yes,
I don't know how to.
you can't
You
screw it
yeah,
up.
it's like it's
I would
almost
rather
like
see someone
countering.
not pick up a weight than pick
It's
one down.
countering you
I know.
coming up.
It's just hanging, it's dangling around.
Do people in VA tell other so? Just I want to check myself, because I have some people in class that are not hinging well. Period. So I don't even have to use a weight. I haven't
Right.
continued with
Yeah.
it down.
So
Is
what,
that
so
okay?
what, so what you do,
Okay.
is you just get them, you just hold them.
Yeah, that's,
Hold them.
yeah.
It's like, the comment I just made about to earlier is like, teaching for teaching, I continually find myself in like areas where I'm like, oh, I forgot all, like as you're talking, I'm just like, I forgot about that, forgot about that, forgot about that, forgot about that, because I teach and then I just get into my thing and I'm like, oh shit, oh, yeah, I forgot about all this stuff. But it's like every single block one, I still, even if I'm gonna do hip hinging with a pipe or any other variation, I still am doing this, and I'm doing it so I can just get it, and I'm turning to the side, just so I can get people to, can they do it? Right? Can they do it?
Yeah, Johnny, though,
Yeah.
because some people don't feel that in their body, so
Yeah.
I've had success, and this is not mine.
Yeah.
I want you to stand about your foot's distance away from the back wall.
Oh, good.
And I want you to put your hands
I like
on your
that.
hips or wherever you find.
foot.
Yep,
Yes.
yep, so, yep, right there. All right, put your hands into your hip flexors.
Yeah.
All right, squeeze your shoulder blades together and touch your ass to
The wall.
the wall. But you just
No.
squat.
No, you just squat.
Hinge it back.
You're
Oh.
hinging.
Yep, but soft knee, yep,
Is your
There
butt
you go.
touching the wall?
Yep.
There you go.
Oh, that's awesome, Chris.
and then come back up.
And come back up.
So usually I'll start them in a little bit closer
Yeah.
and progress them out, and I've found that I can get people from unweighted to weighted in
Oh, that's
like
awesome.
2 sessions.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
More
that's
importantly,
awesome.
you get them to understand the concept of the hinge, because that's what I think,
That's
I mean,
awesome.
I did that for a long time.
Mhm. No, it's great.
Did we get enough hinges in?
No, not really.
No, no, we need more.
So you said weight it, so let me go
Deadlift.
through, so it's, yeah, so you got
TikTok,
deadlifts,
swinging.
you
Yep.
can do it with one arm, right, you can do it with a kettlebell.
Kettlebell, dumbbells, two kettlebells. Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
Kettlebell
yeah.
behind the back. Hip thrust. Uh-huh, that's a hip hinge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that? A
Hip thrust.
Need a
Yeah,
box.
staring.
You need a box.
Oh, yeah, lying in your, lying.
And you can put the weights on the hips
Yeah,
to
and
get
that's
the
why I
hip
don't
work.
take Jeremy's vehicle.
Band on the thighs, single leg.
Yeah, so 2 feet to 1 foot.
Yeah.
You can pulse it up at
Yeah.
the top. You
Yeah.
can-
That's
Just keep in mind too, the bridging, just keep in mind the bridging you're doing on your back is a hinge as well.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's,
Oh, yeah.
your plank to down dog is a hinge. I mean, every movement, most movements are all hinging. There's-
So, and changing your equipment, this is really good for to teach people their shoulder blade placement. Palms, could be like open, jet wing arms. So you've got your single leg hip hinge with cross core, single leg. What's that?
Or you just staggered leg. I've been doing that one.
Oh, let's see.
Yeah.
Where you got your hands in the bands. And just going this way. It's just a simple.
Oh, I like that.
Oh.
Bend your.
Do it again, Tim, for the camera.
Don't get me in there.
You're in it, Mare.
You're already in it.
You've been in it.
Hands in here, you're pressing. A little further. And you're standing.
Stop, Tim. Because this is a teaching moment for everybody.
You gotta tell them
He's
what
gotta
we're
bend, no, he's gotta bend his left
Legs.
knee.
Yeah.
He's gotta bend his left knee.
Yep.
Right, there you go.
There you go.
And then he's gotta
Ooh.
come.
There you go.
Nice.
Now, I mean, you guys talk about like what we get and what General Pop doesn't get. Is his spine right now is in the plank. It's in the downward dog. Right, it's in the driving lunge. Right, it's in the lunge back. It's in a seat if he's sitting correctly. That feel all right, Tim?
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, like people don't get that. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna work out. And you're like, yeah. It's like, all right. Let me know how that goes in my next. Tell me how that goes. It doesn't go good.
So Tim, that's like a warrior 3, right? Without the leg coming out or
Yeah.
anything.
So I teach this in the B&B.
Yeah.
But it's with the cross.
Cool.
Get a lot of
Because
legs.
I've tried with the pipe, they just try to bend the pipe,
Yeah.
try to move the pipes,
Yeah.
the pipes lined up with the mirror. And so it like checks off my little checkbox that we got on the cross core for that class, and they got to kind of feel that out. That's like, and I get more light bulbs from that than with the pipe.
Yeah.
And you can tell people that are really good with it too. You can walk up, unplug them.
And they'll still be.
And they'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah. That's
The
pretty
ones that
good.
aren't, they shouldn't.
What was that again?
Chris, were you gonna say something?
Going back to big toe, because I was looking at Tim planted his big toes when he did that.
Cool.
Going back to kettlebell swing, that's like, again,
Yeah.
if we're gonna talk about things that we're seeing, this is what I call cowboy or cowgirling.
Mhm.
And so one of my favorite cues is to press the big toe down, and that keeps them when they come through from doing.
They're like trying to make room for that
Yeah,
kettlebell,
yeah.
like it's gonna, your thighs aren't that big. Is that good with hip hinging? Okay, let's go into planking. So, let's think about, we've got ants. That's it.
Hi.
So I think Jeremy had us do this one in class and I was like, damn it, you. It was so hard. So, going back into legs, base of support, bending one knee, bending the other knee. And you can take your plank, you can travel in your plank. Chris has us do that. So there's variations in movement. So we've got that lateral, then you've got your changing up, base of support, single hand, foot. Now I changed up my base of support. So, and then we also have, adding different elements to it. You could add your protraction, retraction. That's always tough.
Bear.
There's a plank.
Yeah.
So, John, when all 4 points of contact are on, what kind of exercise is that? Closed chain.
Closed chain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we want closed chain, we want open chain. So that kind of checks off our closed chain box. And so here's your bear.
So I'm sorry, what is closed chain again?
All four.
All 4. So, your bear, and then you can have your bear travel. So again, changing up that speed. You can have your bear bouncing.
Crocodile.
What's a crocodile?
Do it, man. Not do it in a dress. Jeremy, you do it.
Oh, is that the knees?
No, come on, Jeremy, do it. Alright, I'll do it facing this way.
Jerry, put your popcorn down and get involved.
Wait, let me just make sure nothing's gonna be.
Okay, so everything comes.
Woo! Yes, I love it! That is so cute. And then we've got the opportunity to do low plank, and so changing in, so we can add some transverse plane in your low plank. You can add your, Spider-Man. You can add knees, hover. That's always really challenging. Buzzsaw, where you're rolling forward,
You
rolling
could
back.
hip hinge, up to dolphin, back down.
Exactly.
One
What else?
leg, maybe?
Yes. So change it up. So one leg dolphin. What other
Side planks.
side planks? So changing that direction.
Adding in the cross core.
Side plank in the cross core.
Plank
Plank in the cross core.
period.
Does every-
just hold it for a short.
Right.
Yeah.
Does everybody kind of somewhat, can you guys, so what you're looking for a lot is, is it okay if I interject for a second? Yeah. Patterns. Like patterns. So, somebody comes in, right? So it's like, so what are you trying to get them to be able to do? For this to be their dominant pattern. So if this is their dominant pattern, right, they can move their legs without moving their spine. Now, there's nothing wrong necessarily with kind of doing something like this, but is that their pattern? And if that's their pattern, then that means that they're core, they don't have really good stability here. So what I kind of find is all the different plank variations that I try to teach is I'm trying to get them to stabilize their column in planks, right here, there's here, and even behind. And I think I'll give the option for push-ups, but most of the time it's pretty bad. Just like chaturanga is pretty bad.
Yeah, my favorite.
And here's the other thing too, is most of my friends that are strength coaches that I've known that have been in the industry and they're in their 50s and 60s, almost all of them, their shoulders are done. Because they bench press. So bench press fixes you in a position, and it doesn't allow you to go through the normal range of motion. So what do you think the push-up does? Same thing. So
So it just kind of, it locks you into a position. And so over time, it's gonna wear your shoulders down. So for me, it's like, I don't really do chaturanga that much anymore. And then I just, roll into up dog. And then when I'm in here, I'm just really working on, I'm probably gonna jinx myself with what I'm getting ready to say, but I'm probably almost like the longest period of like my neck feeling a lot better. Because I stopped doing all that stuff. And then the other thing, when Sarah talks about the upper body pull, I had rode like this for years, and then done push-ups like this as well, and it's like, so where's the so I'm over pulling, so I'm not really landing here, where I should be landing, and then so where's the stress going? Well, it's going to my neck, and I can't brace here. But I'll watch as I start bracing. I'm almost gonna just kind of look where my elbows go. Yeah, keep going.
Okay, so upper body pull, give me an exercise.
I want to get little stools so it's easy for people, because the reason why I don't use the pull-up bars is because a lot of women can't jump.
There's short men also.
And at Glen Mills, you
We actually have
really
more
need big ones.
Amazonian women in our population.
Oh my gosh, we have a lot
But
of
it's
big
like,
guys.
being able to, but we should be hanging. We should be hanging.
Yep.
So that was my big thing. Chris and I have been talking about this, that the pull-up is something that is really goal-oriented, and if people feel like they can move the needle in something like that,
Yeah.
they'll be like, it's like, wow, I'm really, that's a big deal. Like, that's a big deal. If someone goes from not being able to hang to be able to pull themselves up, that's like huge.
Yeah.
And I do think we've
And
missed
the-
that.
Yep.
But
Hey,
you can use the
use-
cross core in the meantime.
Yeah, 'cause you can
bounce
hook
tools
these-
and start to work that girdle strength.
So this is
what we've been doing.
one thing I do frequently in class, because we don't have the stools, is I do
Yep.
cross core pull-ups. Pinkies facing under the bar. How slow can you lower yourself down? Some people are knees up. Give it a shot.
And with your feet down, it's like an assisted
And then-
pull-up, which is where you
And then, you press yourself back up.
You guys have been
Because you're
sitting
gonna
long
get
enough,
more,
why don't you stand
yep,
up?
you're gonna get more strength working that negative contraction anyway.
Try to hook him.
That eccentric load. And then always when you're doing this, say like pull them apart like you're looking under dog's ears, because sometimes they're not fully clipped.
Okay.
So pull them apart like you're looking at dog's ears to make sure they're fully clipped. So get under the bar.
Okay.
Your head is under the bar. So Otis, get under the bar more. Yep. And then how slow can you lower yourself down? Oh gosh, that doesn't. That's it. And keeping your neck neutral so your gaze is at the wall. People will naturally tilt their chin down while they're doing this. That's it. Nice, Stacy. So now try suspended. Float. And how long can you slowly lower yourself down?
Yeah.
Now let's add a change in tempo here. So let's go up fast and then control down. So up with speed so you can use your legs a little bit. And then, so you're just gonna smoke yourself out here. One of the things I like to add here, because it still is an upper body pull, is the floating lunge. So we jump it up and
We
then
do that
float
one,
it down,
yeah.
like little pixies, fairies floating.
They love it.
Yes.
Not.
Not.
That's my favorite one. I love that.
So, and then that's it. So John, this is one thing that I do a lot, because it's still an upper body.
A floating fairy.
A floating fairy, Jeremy, the floating fairy.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
So modification on that? Where'd the bands go?
Over here, Chris.
Yeah, over there.
So for folks who can't do that, it's too much shoulder load, this is what I've been giving them as an option. Still gonna work the same muscle group
Yes.
and just try to shred that apart. Okay?
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. One way I cue this is to have your pinkies slightly in front of your thumbs so that where you're not pinching, because sometimes they'll be out like this, I feel like it might be a safer range of motion if the pinkies are slightly forward. Feel the difference? Do you feel a difference? So that's, I just say, you know, because what I saw was someone doing this.
Yeah.
And then I was like, ooh, yeah, how am I gonna fix that? So I have them bring it up, and I call it paint the face. So.
You got a name for everything.
You really do.
I was at, K through 12 phys ed teacher, so there you go. That's it. So that is an upper body pull. What's another upper body pull? Rowing, cross core row. We could row. We could take it down to a single arm. So again, we went from 2 arms to 1 arm. You unpin, we pull it in, row it in, 1 arm comes out, you're resisting rotation. You can add a little bit of speed to it, change that tempo, that changes it. It's very challenging. And we also have bent over rows. Yes, I love those.
Bend over.
Bent over.
You can also do a single arm.
Single arm.
We used to do that in the beginning. Tabletop row?
Tabletop row. So with the tabletop row, it's best to have a yoga block so you can get the full range of motion. Oh wait, let me see, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about shortening this.
Oh
so that
yes,
it's
the
about-
reverse tabletop.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Now you're
Yeah,
getting-
it is reverse tabletop. I know what you mean too.
Mm-hmm.
And I would not unpin for this, 'cause that's just me.
That is a
And this would
nasty
probably
one.
be up a little higher, but coming in,
Yeah.
so you're gonna get your glutes working.
Oh yeah, and so much glutes and quads. So call that a vertical shin line. You want your knees over your ankles. Because you'll see people, this will be the misalignment, because you'll see people start here, but as they get fatigued, they press away. And that's,
Also, they start whipping their head around.
and that's not the same load. So, tabletop row, thank you. We've got here, so you can make it a prowling tiger. It's best to have a block for, so that you can get full range of motion, because otherwise, it's not as much work. So you have to have that. So again, we're changing the base of support. So I'm getting a row, and again, keeping it at the ribs, changing that tempo. Pause here, slow down. That's where you're gonna get more work. We also have bent over rows. With dumbbells, this is another way to change it up. So you row it up, keep it under tension. 1 arm comes down, 1 arm comes up. So you're still going from 2 arms to 1 arm.
That's why your neck hurts you. 'Cause you're doing the mistake I made for like 20 years. You're pulling your elbow behind you.
Oh,
Right,
So
look
stop
over
here?
Sarah. Yeah, see?
Yeah.
That goes right to your neck.
well, my neck was mainly the sofa.
Sarah,
The
and
last
just go
one.
back to the other thing for like a time saving thing,
Yeah.
since I have a tendency to do more rounds than Johnny does.
Yeah.
So I would throw in your stationary lunge with that.
Yes,
There's smoking here, you're
Uh-huh.
kind of squared off.
love it.
I love that, bro.
Yeah, Chris,
So-
yeah, pull-
You can
you
also,
have to pull the other down.
Yeah.
you can also blend your plank and a row.
You switch hands, roll that dumbbell.
Yep.
Or you can just have 2.
Yeah.
You do get a tremendous amount of core work if you reach cross body to bring it over. So,
Yeah.
that's good. Band, bend over row. You can have it on your wrists. Squeezing it back.
That'd be a good block one.
Uh-huh. So you could have a row and a thruster. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. You could add a little balance element to it. Hold it, reach it out. Hold it, reach it out. So changing up that tempo. Here you go.
I like these.
Small, fast, and set up.
Yeah.
See that and go, woo. That's great.
Yeah, Chris. Okay, so is that enough upper body pulls?
Triceps, flies, laterals, we don't do enough of those,
Right?
sorry.
I'm
Yeah.
just,
So we don't.
I guess I'm just thinking about like kind of what you were talking about. I think Chris was alluding to this a while too. Is
is like this idea that you have like a move of the week or something. Because the reason why I stay away from some of this stuff is it's just the laborious setup with when you've got like a group of people in a room.
I think it goes back, I would argue with you on the laborious stuff, because now I've got, again, it goes back to, I'm fortunate enough that I've got groups that don't really change a lot. My 6 a.m.ers, you know, it's that core group
Yeah,
of
so
22.
they're learning.
They're learning. And when I say clipped into the cross court clipped up, they come in, you know, when I say kettlebell clipped into the cross court, they don't even ask me which handle it has to go in. So it's repetition.
Yeah.
You can't do that at 6
It's-
p.m.
Yeah. And maybe at 6 a.m. they don't know that.
It really gets back to the whole culture thing. Like if the culture understands it, then it's easy, you can see
And
it
what I love is now, if somebody new does walk in,
Yeah.
people help, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a community building.
So,
You know, this is
John,
what this is.
Yeah.
going back to the, exercise of the week, what we're moving to is having preset, like Monday, every location, Tim's teaching here, Chris is teaching in Wilmington, I'm teaching at the Vic Meet or whatever. It's the same. So that Monday's the same, so that we can all be on the same plan, so then someone's not, doing a crazy amount of chest presses every day, 3 days in a row. So that's where we're going with this. So this is the initial planning meeting, so that our brains are all working together, and then we're gonna create stuff together. It's gonna take a couple meetings for us to get to this point, but that's where we're going.
And I would say, why not make it move of the month?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, for people who are only maybe, coming in once a week, for them to get something solid, you're gonna need, and make it match the yoga curriculum. Why not?
Yeah, because I actually never try to, whatever she does on Monday, I'm not doing it on Wednesday.
Exactly.
Like, I come to work out, but
Right.
I take a picture of her class
Yep.
and then incorporate some things
Right.
she doesn't do. So that whole challenge, I
That's
just
what-
decided I'm not doing that on
That's
Wednesday.
what we're talking about, is trying to
Exactly.
make it more synergized.
Exactly.
So that through the week, and like our students will be able to look eventually and
Right.
see what's the practice of the day.
Right.
And they can actually make some scheduling around that and understand that, like, if they come Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or if someone comes Tuesday, Thursday, that they can look and they can go, okay, this makes sense. I'm
Yeah.
actually hitting everything.
Yeah, I just don't wanna burn people out, cause like, if she's doing a lot of arm work, then maybe I'm going to the legs that Wednesday.
So can we say for upper body push, it's pretty much the exact opposite of what we just did? Okay. It's just facing the other direction?
You and I talked about this, one of the biggest points we wanted to make today was like, everyone gets into a creative rut in anything they do, not just this. Does anybody know the answer to getting out of a creative rut? Take different classes. Practice. Whether you're painting, whether you are writing, you cannot get out of your rut if you don't practice, right? So it doesn't have to be in an organized fashion, it could be by yourself in behavior when it's dead or whatever, but like practice, as an artist, if I'm not practicing, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything. When I come to it, I can't just come to it one day and then something comes out. It doesn't work that way. It has to be a practice.
And going into where Jeremy's talking, the triceps, biceps, core, glutes, that's the stuff our clients love. Like, I know they love when their triceps
No lie.
feel it. So we'll get into this, but let's get a couple of these done, okay? So that's where we're gonna get extra stuff. So let's,
Can we keep going, sir? You didn't finish, you didn't go through everything.
upper body push, upper body pull, hinge, lunge.
Plank.
Oh, carries. We did the plank carries. Okay, so, we've got one arm, two arms. So let's grab a kettlebell. Get a kettlebell, Audrey. Grab 2 kettlebells of the same height or weight. Well, we'll do.
That's part of it too, because we don't have enough, probably.
So depends on how many people you have in class, just like Carrie. If you see that, there's gonna be a larger number of people in class, maybe you do an offset carry, uneven carry. Okay? So when you have 2 weights of the same weight in each hand, and we're walking, here we go, let's start walking. So this is called a farmer's carry, like you have 2 bags of grain in each hand, or 2 buckets of water. Keep the chest high. So the purpose, if someone says, why am I doing a carry? Well,
so you can take cat litter down into your basement.
There you go. So, a purpose of a carry is to increase your grip strength, increase your muscular endurance.
This is actually.
It is actually really working your whole spinal stability, core stability, your balance. There is a moment where you're on one foot. Now change up your speed. Let's go slower. Get that foot up. So you'll find that that's harder. So this is actually a balance training exercise. Okay. Now that is called a farmer's carry. Put one kettlebell down. You are now entering a suitcase carry. So one kettlebell down, keep walking. You'll notice that your opposite side, your quadratus lumborum is firing, or your lower back muscles. Yep. Well, you'll feel it. It's that muscle. It's that muscle toppy area. So that's that muscle.
It's your lower back.
Muffin top.
Are we trying
Are
we trying to make sure that the
not
kettlebell
really your
is not
muffin
moving
top.
a lot? Like
Yep.
we're trying to keep that
And you're
kettlebell.
keeping your shoulders level. You're keeping your feet like moving number 11s. You're trying, now switch your hands so that you can work your other muffin top.
It's really kind of like how we're doing it right now. It's like it works, and people start laughing. They actually enjoy it.
Okay.
You know?
Now we're gonna go into a uneven, that's exactly it. This is called a clean carry. So you're gonna clean it up. And then your thumb is at your sternum, so you gotta cue them. Your thumb is at your sternum. If you come out wide, that's gonna be dangerous on the shoulder. Your thumb is at your sternum, your elbow is elevated, but not higher than your shoulder.
I like this.
Yeah.
It does.
Okay, now you're gonna go back to your other kettlebell, and you're gonna do a double arm clean carry. And you'll see how aerobically challenging it is. So so John, that's a very improper position right there.
You're
See
really
your
leaning
shoulder?
right.
The thumb has got to be at the sternum. Yep, so you're creating this pocket. You, okay, get lighter weight. So the thumbs, Jill, thumbs at your sternum, okay? Thumbs at your sternum. Now you're gonna have to cue right of the elbow, Stacy. That's it. Excellent, Chris. You're gonna have to cue where the ribs are. You'll see people starting to lead with their hips. Okay? Now we can do uneven carries. One arm is up, one arm is down.
I'm not getting this weight over my head.
Me neither.
So keep that one down by your side. There we go. Or one.
So you want to come here
And switch it up.
and then just stay here.
So see how much that heart rate
You not
is?
need to be loading
Firing
that.
through the elbow.
You guys, when you walk around, so if your elbow's bent or your arms forward, it's really, you're just kind of hurting your neck. So for most people, going overhead, like everybody turn and face there.
That's it.
So if that arm is not, if that elbow's not straight, if you turn to the side, and if it's not stacked over the leg, then that's not a good idea. Right, so for most human beings, it's good, that modification that Sarah just showed, which I really like. And that, to do this, that's freaking hard, that's hard.
That's an offset clean carry. It is so hard.
So that's a much better position than most human, and you guys know, if you say,
Right.
straighten your arm, you can do it overhead if you straighten your arm, and then what are you gonna, they're gonna do it anyway.
Yeah.
And they're not gonna listen, you're gonna be like, I really like that.
Okay, Jeremy wants to talk about something real quick, and then we're gonna get programming.
No, I just think it's important that we're also like working resting squats.
Yeah.
Like holding a squat hold with or without a kettlebell. With the kettlebell's better, but and upright spine. And staying here for a minute.
A minute.
A minute.
Yeah. I'm working on Dave with this. This is, people will figure out if they have ankle issues.
Really?
But this is our next challenge.
Yeah, I think
got
so.
it. Let's do it.
We used to do that, the biggest
Yeah,
challenge.
we used to. Yeah, we got away from it. Yeah.
At the end, I remember.
And hey, it's fine.
Studio still.
We're working on 5 minutes, yeah.
The challenge is gonna be getting people to recognize what their imbalances are and getting them to correct them.
Let's just
Yes.
No, wait,
If I
say-
Kind of lean a little bit further back.
This is my song. Oh, geez.
Hey, girl.
This is what I say all day, every day. You have to recognize what your imbalances are and your postural habits are, and you have to address them all the time. So even in stationary sequence, when I say when you come to your plank, give me a double chin so that from the behind the room I don't see headless shoulders. Lift the back of your skull, get it in line with your body, hinge to down dog, come back. What happened to your head?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that was it, we did it that one time and now you can let your head droop again. It's like, okay, I do that all the time, so I need to remind myself of that. And if you look in the mirror, people look in the mirror and they think they're in a flat back and they're not in a flat back, you gotta tell them they're not in a flat back. Because they think they are and they're not.
I've been using a dowel for planking.
It doesn't matter, their head's not touching, their shoulders are rounded, their back, it's like, okay, does that look, I've said it before. I've stopped stationary and said, look in the mirror, is that a flat back to you? That's not, so you're gonna walk around with this for your whole life? You gotta find it in your body and own it everywhere you are. Not just in this room, when you walk out, when you sit in your car, when you drive, wherever your posture is your posture, it's your problem. Own it and address it wherever you are. Not just, okay, I did one good plank, and then it's like, okay, now I can go back to this.
You know, I was just gonna add a little thing that people don't look in the mirror.
No.
They don't. You tell them to look in the mirror and you look at them and they're, I mean, just as a student, right, still, and teaching, stationary, they don't look in the mirror. Even when you tell them, look to the side, they still don't.
A lot of them can't.
They can't because
Like
why?
you're
Mirrors
healthy
look
and you like what you see, a lot of them can't, so you're also dealing with that a little bit.
But
And
you-
so that's where,
But you know what, like when we do triceps in VA, I make them look in the mirror and I make them look at their muscle, like their arm as opposed to themselves, because I want them to see how gorgeous that looks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want them to focus on, because you get a lot, you get a lot of this stuff going, and I make them slow down. But when we turn them this way, and then we have them, even with that band, which I love, right? That's like my favorite with the tricep. By having people look at that tricep flexing, people actually get excited to see their muscles moving. And that's been really helpful. Instead of you looking at you, maybe just look at your arm going through that range of motion. And people really like that. I'm finding that to be really helpful.
Well, and I think too, just at the risk of almost stating the obvious, because we're talking about changing and adding different variations, we're talking about scaling. So when people aren't doing the thing, straightening the elbow, whatever, we as coaches are called to say, you know what, Jerry, put that down.
Mm-hmm.
Right, we have to be willing to pull people back when they won't do that for themselves, because we want to keep it intelligent, we
I
want to
also-
keep it functional.
Block one, this is something that I always do, because it's my personal assessment of the class. I take the dowel rod overhead, and then if someone can't do it, I'll say, and I talk about it in block one while we're doing it. I said, and if anyone's having trouble with this, block two, when we're doing ground to overhead, you're gonna stop at the grip transition position. That's gonna be your work. So, and then.
You oftentimes have to tell people that they shouldn't lift above their head
And
with the
be
weight,
prepared to
because
walk
they
away
will look at
and-
everyone else in the
I
class.
don't, not even programming overhead load anymore.
Well, we'll do a ground overhead, but when I see somebody jutting ribs out and doing all
Yeah.
kinds of, just like you said,
Yeah.
Sarah, I will go over to them and say, I think you should put the weight down. Because people are looking at everybody else in the class doing it and they wanna stay with the crowd, so.
And the delivery is just, hey, try this.
And that's
Not,
exactly
Yes.
what
don't
you
do that.
No, I don't do that.
No, give them, hey,
Not
give
that.
this
An
a,
alternative.
yeah,
Yes.
hey, try this.
Yes, I'm not as direct as that, even though I am direct. but-
All right, are we ready to write a couple workouts together?
My bad.
One second, Sarah, just because I just had this kind of, I keep thinking about how we're just kind of positioning all this stuff. And just even you guys, like from your perspective, when somebody walks in or you're talking to somebody about Balanced Athlete, what we're doing, it's like, when I became a strength coach in 1998, and this was really kind of profound, it's like, one of the questions was, what is the primary role of a strength coach? And so the answer to the question was to prevent injury. And one of the other multiple questions was, create better strength, create better power, right? But the answer was prevent injury.
Prevent injury.
So sit with that just for a moment. Right, so it's like, so then what's the primary, and then this is like VA level 1 training, so what are the primary reasons why an athlete gets injured? This should like roll off your tongue. If for nobody else but your own God-forsaken body.
Imbalances.
Imbalances, right and left sides. Second thing.
Lack of spinal stability. Right? And if there's a third that's arising right now, it's breathing irregularities. So those are the three things that we're addressing in balanced athlete. And then, so if we start doing things that aren't honoring that, right, then that's not what we're doing.
Roll that up one more time, Johnny.
So it's asymmetries, so that will be series 2 in the 7 series. The first one is lack of spinal stability, which is series 1. And then if there's a third, which will be series 4, it's breathing irregularities. So my thing is just, you know, I always tell people, like, to be really helpful when somebody's coming in and if maybe they're not listening. You guys have anybody that does that? They're not really listening. Right? I want you to be able to look at them and say, my primary responsibility is your safety. That's my primary responsibility, and your longevity. Your longevity. And I've been saying that recently to people, and it really, it hits with people. You're like, look, man, I'm not worried about right now. I'm worried about like 15 years from now, 10 years from now. If you keep doing this way, you can't expect to not have like knee injuries or back injuries or shoulder injuries. And I had said this to Tim earlier, more back to a yoga student. I said, you know, if you feel like emotionally sound and stable, it's okay for you to tell somebody this might not be the right place for you. I'm okay with you saying that, as long as it's done in a respectful manner. Right? It's okay, like, this is not what I teach, bro. I'm sorry, man. It's like, but you might find that somewhere else, but it ain't me, and it's not what we're doing. You know? And it's like, so like all of this, all these kind of different things, these variations and stuff that we're talking about. And then the other thing I say to people, and again, it's like, don't come here, like if you're to exercise. And I know that kind of sounds crazy, right? Come here to learn, right? Come here, right? Come here for lots of reasons, but if you want to exercise, just go to the Y. Just go to the, if that's where you're going, just go to the Y exercise.
I also want to add, all these things you're talking about, I think you need to incorporate this in your website and things like that. You need to incorporate these words, education, you know, and all these other words that you're speaking about today.
Yeah.
And that will differentiate you as well.
Marketing.
Because, you know, you have to do that. Your marketing and social media, especially your website, has to reflect everything that we're talking about.
Yeah, and it doesn't right now.
It
right.
doesn't.
So
just please remember that.
Yeah, no, I'm working on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we like the idea of the pod, practice of the day.
Yeah.
It helps when you need a sub, right? Early.
Well, before you go in, Sarah, to doing different ones, so does anybody have any questions on, like, the single leg hip hinge? Like, I'll do that a lot in the beginning. It's definitely, like, you know, the straddle, the lateral movements, right? And then, you know, it's funny, like with the arms thing, it's just people like it, and it's still really, really functional if you're doing it correctly.
Sorry, John, straddle is what? Like what, size on this?
So just, you know, like anything here, right, whether you're coming this way, right, here, you know, any motions laterally, but, and again, it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, you have to try to get everything in. It's just, you're aiming to try to get everything.
All right, let's get this. Chris, you're gonna be our writer. I'm gonna be the questioner, and you be the writer, because Chris has the most incredible handwriting. So, you can take the note. All right, so first things first, what's our work time, what's our rest time?
45 seconds.
45 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, and how much rest?
None. 15.
15, all right.
That's a long time to rest.
If you're going super heavy in weights though,
You
what do
shouldn't be,
have?
you shouldn't be going heavy
And
on
45 is.
Oh,
So
is that where we're
we
going?
want strength, let's make this a real strength thing.
Okay, so then,
Yeah.
that would be.
Strength is our main focus here. Okay, cause then, you know, if you're doing this, alright, so. If we're going strength,
What, come here and I'll stand on you. She's snack, she's getting
We'll wake up the core up the get-go.
yeah,
Go down bridge. And then from right there, you're really close, you can flip right over to plank, or you go straight to a core exercise.
I like that because you're
Already
on the
down.
ground already, so that's smart programming. Supine or plank?
Plank.
Plank. Strength, we're going heavy, and cue heavy dumbbells, kettlebells, heavies. What are we gonna have, squat? Okay, what kind of squat? Front rack, love it. Okay.
What's?
HDB.
Yeah.
So you already have those weights, what's a good,
Shoulder press.
okay?
I'm sorry, can we talk about squat front rack, what is that?
Front rack.
Oh, okay,
Yep, so
Yep.
those weights are hovering.
yep, got it, yep.
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate.
Okay.
If you just ask them to go super heavy in their squat.
They're already smoked in the front
Yeah.
rack.
Then
How
it's
about
gonna
bend
be-
over row?
There you go. Look at that handwriting.
And then right from there
Here's where
into a
it
heavy
is.
deadlift.
Yes!
And boom.
That's your choice.
Yes!
Makes me wanna take that rest away and just go. Sorry.
That's what Jeremy's gonna do anyway.
Okay?
Good lunges there after, right?
Are we doing deadlifts with the dumbbells still?
So you did a bent over row where we were holding the bottom like a deadlift position, and then we're doing deadlift. So it's kind of, it's fine.
Good point, so
Or
you're
you
looking
could combine them,
Yeah,
row,
like
deadlift,
Extra row.
row, deadlift.
yeah, I like that, let's do that.
Then you can get 4 rounds.
Also,
Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say.
Of 4 rounds, trust me.
I often get overzealous in my block twos, and next thing you know, like time's running out on me. So if you set up stuff that you can start sandwiching together,
Yes.
that can be a little time saver,
More
audible.
complex
sort of
moves.
thing.
Okay, so we need a lunge in here.
Let's go lateral.
Okay, alright.
Let's go lateral.
So that's the one thing too, is we have to think about planes of motion, you know, sometimes we get so stuck in like,
Up and down,
Yeah.
or.
And so maybe if you had 2, maybe they get rid of the weights, maybe they go to 1,
yep.
you know?
We could also add lateral lunge to single arm overhead press. You know, so you can double your 5-1 exercise, get the other one 50% off. Buy one, get one free. And there we go. Yeah.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 exercises, 6 minutes, can definitely get 4, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Are we balancing?
Yep.
It's at the end.
There it is, alright.
Okay. Now, John, do squat jumps consider as a bounce if you're going through that full range of motion?
No. What I would like to see is in every single freaking pod, you have to bounce for 3 minutes. Period.
Well, it's gonna happen in this one.
Well, so, and just, I mean,
Continuous?
again, it's, there's a prescription for this stuff. But really, it's, you know, the reason why I created this stuff was because I liked how I was healing my body through yoga. And so if you wanna heal your body, and you want your body to become more functional, then you absolutely
Take it down
have
some.
to master that skill.
Okay.
So question for you, continuous bounce or totality?
No, totality.
Okay,
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
yeah.
3
just-
1 minutes.
Okay,
of
so are we,
turn.
are we good with this one?
In this case, it'd be 4
Okay.
minutes of bouncing.
Okay, we got it recorded, moving on. Alright, let's do something that's a little bit more of.
Did you take a picture of that, Sarah?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's done. Okay, so we still want to have some speed, we still wanna keep some power. You know, we're not gonna keep that heart rate up crazy high the whole time, but there will be little tiny bits where it's not going above your max aerobic, but we're getting up there. So this is gonna be a little bit more about, let's get it up. So, what's our work time? 30 seconds. Uh-huh. 10 seconds of recovery. Okay, 30 10s. So when you blend cardio, strength, and power, that's metabolic conditioning. So let's go this way. So we're gonna take it and we're gonna do a line that way. So give me a cardio. Nothing like too crazy. We're not trying to get people injured.
Mountain climbers.
Mountain climbers, okay.
Ease them in.
Okay?
Ease 'em in.
Give me a strength.
Let's make this.
Goblet squat. And in power, that would come off a goblet squat. You never have to leave the ground if you don't want to.
Tracking lunge? Or wait, no, they just had weight?
What about a squat jump?
Or squat, heel raise, yeah.
Now, Chris used to talk a lot about volume. You could do that line 2 times in a row and really work them. So let's hit times 2. Right underneath. Okay, so let's do another cardio.
High knees.
Fast knees, yeah, high knees. I just like saying high knees.
You also have the sense of humor of a 10-year-old boy.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, give me a strength. Lunge. So this one's gonna be a little longer, because let's spend 30 seconds on that one leg, and then do 30 seconds on the other. Mhm. And what's our power?
Pigeon choice?
Lunge jump. Driving lunge jumps. What, lunge hops? I forgot to say that. Does anyone do these?
They're nasty.
So driving lunge, switch, what would you like here? Hinge of choice? I kinda like, I'm gonna talk to you about that, there's something I like with. So let's do something lunging, what would be lunging, cause this is volume, we're doing the same muscle group in different ways. Lunge
Okay,
row.
sorry.
Yeah,
Go lateral lunge.
power,
Oh, power.
driving
Driving
lunge.
lunge.
There's a lot of wind in there.
Yep,
Yeah.
times 2. Lunges are gonna be done now, we don't have to do them again. There we go. Okay, so let's give it another cardio. Let's go to our fast feet. So now, you're talking about strength. Let's get our plank in. Let's really work the crap out of a plank. And you think about like a swing, you end in that nice strong plank position, so a swing is a really good power when you're doing with a plank. Or hinge of choice, yeah. Times 2. So see how it's easy, like you take a pairing of something. There we go. And you know, in your mountain climber, you could change up your speed. It could be a very slow mountain climber. It could be a 1, 2, 3 hold, 1, 2, 3 hold. You know, you've got that. All right, let's do one more. Another cardio. Herpes.
Religious class in here. Mountain climbers and burpees.
So let's look. We've got squats, lunges, hinges. We've got our plank.
Bear.
Bear.
Bear. Okay.
What's the funny thing is I mean, you could teach somebody how to do a burpee correctly, but people aren't gonna do them correctly.
So I've been giving inchworms as a viable option,
Yeah.
and people are actually doing it instead.
bear or inchworm. There we go. And then,
What would be interim in block one?
what's
Teach them
an
in block one.
explosive exercise similar to a bear?
Bridge, we do.
We could do a bridge. Do you ever do these? Do you do your in and ups where you start in athletic ready position?
Yeah.
Oh,
In and
yeah.
out, but Chris calls another thing in and out.
What do you call?
I call it these.
Oh, I like those. That's nice.
You know what I think would be really helpful is if you did, like, for me, just even the way like my mind's starting to turn with like different things, is if you took videos of, like, how does everybody, because it's almost 2 o'clock, Sarah?
Yeah,
I don't
this
wanna,
is it.
is that one, that last one? Alright, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so what's our,
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate. If we move swings to here,
Sure.
you're in plank already.
Yeah.
So we could,
yeah, because we need a route.
Yeah.
You could also go to the crosswalk and get a speed route.
mm,
You know, that's really challenging. So that's alternating arms.
So we just, 2 is fine for today.
Yep.
I think, the main thing we're trying to do is kind of like roll this out, and then this is the format of how we start to come up with the pods, because it's collaborative, right? Like, it's collaborative, it's not being doled out, it's like we're all sitting together coming up with ideas, and then, you know, it's put into a structure, and then you get X amount of weeks in advance. Does that make sense? Does everybody like that, like, understand that?
I will
Hate
say,
that?
I will say this though, I always do my routines on Sunday. If I can't do, when I look at variations of things, if I can't do it, I don't teach it.
Right, I think it's
So like for,
great.
like, when you were in plank moving, I can't move in plank, so I don't teach stuff I can't do. Does that make sense?
You could say, I can't do this.
I can
but-
give them the option.
Yeah, you could give them the
Okay,
option, yeah,
okay,
totally. Say,
alright.
hey, I don't do this.
you're articulate enough. You can just say, I mean, it's better.
Right,
when,
I just
you know.
don't feel comfortable, okay, cool.
You could say, I say things like that, like, I was teaching class the other day somewhere, and there was box jumps, and I said, I don't do box jumps anymore. I don't, you know, the risk of me cutting open my shins isn't
Correct.
worth the power. So I just do squat jumps.
Yeah,
Because I had it
yeah.
in person in my class, so I said, I can teach you how to do it, but I'm not gonna do it myself
Okay.
anymore.
Our next schedule changes on September 9th. So there will be a 1-pager that the front desk will have that will just explain why balanced athlete, classes are just called balanced athlete. Just see if you can just kind of just keep in mind again, what's our primary responsibility? And safety, right? But what are we really trying, you know, again, like, my intention of 15 years ago, why I came up with Balanced Athlete was because as I was starting to share what I started to learn in yoga, and scientists discover stuff many times by mistake. So I really wouldn't say anything that we're necessarily doing is yoga. It was, I started to understand gravity, arc systems, and to create a program that can help people augment the benefits that they could experience in a yoga practice. And that's exactly what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to augment, right? So then when you go back in the yoga room, you're like, holy shit, man, I can feel this. Because when I started practicing yoga, guess why I stopped lifting? I stopped lifting weights because I would take a step back every time I went back into yoga. And I thought it was because of fitness movements, and it wasn't because of fitness movements, it's because how I was programming my movements. So somebody could practice yoga with us in here, go down to, not the Y or any gym, they could do their stuff, take a step back, and then come back in here again. And they go, well, I don't really need to go into the BA stuff because I'm going down, I'd go to the Y a couple days a week. It's like, what we're doing in this room is not what you're doing at the Y. That's not what we're doing in here. So it's so important to be able to differentiate what we're doing with Balanced Athlete and to not confuse it with a workout, because that's not, like, I have zero interest in that, in trying to compete with these other offerings that are, in my opinion, old. And it's an old mentality that I think in our lifetimes we're gonna watch it go away.
we're gonna watch it slowly fade. People are like, yeah, so, you know, it's because people are destroying their bodies. And really, what I want this whole thing about is we're trying to really think about like longevity and being smart and not, you know, and not tearing down. Do you have anything else?
I do, only because I'm just some feedback, and I know some of you will disagree with me, some of you will agree with me. Just like that first pod that we put on was a lunge, a squat, a hinge. When people come in and see it, like even though it's the same thing, I think if they see it looks different, then they're getting more value, or like it's different, because if it's written up the same all the time, I think people think, oh, it's just the same thing, I've already done that.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it is the same thing, it's just like, it's a little bit of marketing and repackaging. It's very easy just to write lunge, lunge, bounce, bounce, let it, just change that. If you're doing a lateral lunge, write lateral lunge, not just lunge. If you're doing a goblet squat, yes, Stacy.
Oh, I just, because you asked for any concerns and I didn't get a chance to say. So the only concern that I have about there being a pod of the day is that it's not authentic to me or my practice. It's hard to teach.
I totally agree.
So, and it's not like I'm in this room 3-4 days a week, so it's not like I don't have a balanced athlete practice. But there are things that, because I don't make it to your class, and so there's things that are up, like I don't know how to do, or at least I feel like I don't know how to do.
It's still a goblet squat, it's still squat, so it's gonna just look a little different on the board.
Yeah.
So
I think what we could wind up doing, sir, if I could interject, is that you could, we wanna start kind of just slow with this. No, again, nobody's gonna get any, I mean, if somebody's like, fuck you, I'm not, you're like, all right, forget it. You know what I mean? But it's like, I'm not comfortable, so I didn't do it, okay? If it's like 2 years from now and you're like, I'm still not comfortable, I'm like, all right, you're not actually doing it. So what I'm thinking is, we're gonna, we could record this, so you could actually watch it.
Okay.
And we're not gonna all of a sudden, in a month from now, being like, every day, you're like, holy shit, like how, I can't, like we're considerate. You know, the idea, I'm excited about this because I don't put enough into programming. Like I mean, you watch me. I mean, I come in here, it's like I throw stuff up on the board.
He's lunge.
Right, yeah, that's me. And she told me, she's like, you're boring as shit. So it's like, but I'm always teaching it different. And I also believe that there's so much that goes behind the connection I'm making to the students, the music I'm playing, the educating I'm doing, the inspiring I'm doing. So it's like, if I'm doing all of that stuff too, that's a big, huge part of it. That's a big, huge part, you know? So we're not, we also just want to make sure that, because I don't know, you know, because it's different, like they could be at Chris's a couple days, and then they're with me, and it's like, okay, I've done a kettlebell swing 3 days in a row. Like, unless there's some kind of uniform that we're not moving towards to some degree, where people are going to keep experiencing like stuff like where I've done this like 3 days in a row.
And then haven't done something else.
Right.
And so
and nobody should be doing this every day.
And you can take, it's still all the same movement.
Yeah.
It's not that there's not a variation in there for you to be like, well, I don't know how to do this specific thing.
Switch it.
I'm gonna do my version, but they're still hitting the same group of muscles. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So like it's not like super rigid. We're not trying to get super rigid. We're just trying to kind of come up with like an actual organized map for our students. And then even like to where Sarah's saying for the work, more so than marketing, people just wanna know what equipment to get.
Yeah.
And they wanna know what weight, okay?
Yeah.
So if you're just doing squat, lunge, and then you go, okay, here's the equipment. I'm lugging like 3 different kettlebell weight, you know, depending on what we're gonna do. So if you're gonna differentiate what it is, it also helps me not hug 3 kettlebells, right? Or not have to run back even though it's too heavy or too light. It's just about putting more mindfulness into that, so people can also come in and start to be mindful about what they're doing. So
I'm gonna go a lot heavier in a deadlift.
And any of these movements really, they shouldn't really be exceeding, I mean, a minute. A minute's a lot.
A minute's
you know?
a lot,
I mean,
yeah.
most of these movements are 30 seconds, 45 seconds, whatever.
Yeah.
And get in the habit too of just saying, you don't need to use the whole, if you're done, you're done. Like, be smart, because that's gonna be a big part of it has been a big part of this program, and it's gonna continue to be a big part of this program, is learn to work to technical failure, not movement failure. Right, because if that doesn't roll off your tongue nearly every practice, you gotta memorize it. It's not me, it's Mike Boyle. He's one of the top strength coaches in the world up in Boston. He said, learn to work to technical failure. And I added on, not movement failure, because it's brilliant. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go back to what Stacy was saying about not being comfortable. I think one of the keys to this is gonna be that the powers that be, whoever those powers that be are, is that you get us the practice of the day well in advance, so it's not an oh shit moment.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that Stacy has time to go, or I have time to call Stacy and say, what the heck does this mean?
Or I have time to call you and go, what
You know,
does
so,
this mean?
which I also say is a really great way for us
Us
to
to share.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Probably
So-
do that on in the Facebook chat group.
Yeah.
And then, put the videos up on there so you guys can all.
You're on Facebook.
You guys, well, it's just it's an easy way for everybody to make comments about it and to put it
Yeah.
up on there.
Yep.
And that would be probably.
But I'm just gonna beg for,
You
let
don't
us,
wanna
let
know.
us be prepared so we can be at our best.
Our
Oh,
goal,
yeah.
our goal is to have 10 weeks, like somewhere between 8 to 10 weeks worth of pods mapped out, and then sit down and keep rolling them. Does that make sense? Yeah.
So you go through 10 and then you do it over
Right,
again.
and we're not gonna meet on week 10, right? We meet at week 5 to put together some more collaborations, so that there's a constant rolling of information.
I think this might be able to just be done digitally too. Just kind of people, just kind of, hey, this is what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I
And
think
then
a
people are-
submission of people just coming up with pods
Yeah.
and submitting them, and then we kind of pull from there, so you feel collaborative and you feel like you're involved and you're not giving up your life on a Sunday, you know?
Yeah. Thank you all so much. There's still food here.